Isaac Asimov was a prolific and highly successful science fiction writer and biochemist who, during his career, wrote and edited around 500 books, the most acclaimed of which are contained within the Foundation and Robot series. Born in Russia in 1920, Asimov was taken to the United States at the age of 3, where he grew up in Brooklyn. Asimov began contributing stories to science fiction magazines in 1939 and was taken under the wing of astounding science fiction editor John W. Campbell, Jr. He sold his first story, Marooned Off Vesta, to Amazing Stories, and in 1941 his short story Nightfall brought him into prominence. The story was set on a planet in a multiple star system that only experienced darkness for one night every 2,000 years. Asimov began writing his popular Robot series in 1940, which would later be collected in I, Robot in 1950, within which contained his fabled 3 laws of robotics. Number 1. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Number 2. A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law. Number 3. A robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first and second laws. These set of ethics for robots greatly influenced writers' treatment of the subject in science fiction and are still cited today in modern work. The Encyclopedists, published in Astounding magazine in 1942, was the first creation of Asimov's popular Foundation series. Vaguely modelled on the fall of the Roman Empire, the Foundation series begins in the last days of the Galactic Empire. Through the discipline of psychohistory, a mathematical prediction of future events, Harry Seldon sets into motion a plan to reduce the predicted 30,000-year galactic dark ages to 1,000 years, by gathering the brightest minds on the planet Terminus to form the foundation of the new Galactic Empire. The stories, written between 1942 and 1949, were collected as the Foundation Trilogy, which comprise Foundation, published in 1951, Foundation and Empire, published in 1952, and Second Foundation, published in 1953. The trilogy won the Special Hugo Award in 1966 for Best Science Fiction Series of all time. During this time, the world was living through what would later become known as the Golden Age of Sci-Fi, a period from the 1930s to 1950s during which the sci-fi genre gained wide public attention and many classic sci-fi stories were published. It was during this time that Asimov would earn his title as one of the big 3 sci-fi authors of the day, alongside Robert Heinlein and Arthur C. Clarke. Interesting fact, during World War II, Asimov worked at the Naval Aviation Experimental Station in Philadelphia, along with science fiction authors Robert Heinlein and L. Sprague de Camp. Asimov's first novels, Pebble in the Sky, published in 1950, The Stars Like Dust, published in 1951, and The Currents of Space, published in 1952, were set during and before the Galactic Empire within the Foundation universe, but had no relation to the Foundation series. Under the pseudonym Paul French, he wrote the children's Lucky Star series between 1952 and 1958, where each volume took place on a different world in the solar system. Asimov advocated that science fiction could be applied to any literary genre, rather than just being a limited genre in itself. And he set out to prove it with The Caves of Steel, published in 1954, and The Naked Sun, published in 1957, both of which saw Asimov return to his positronic robots in the Robot series with 2 novels that combined mystery with science fiction. In the stories, humanity is divided between those who live on Earth in overpopulated underground cities and the wealthy spacers who live on worlds around nearby stars. We follow the human policeman, Lige Bailey, and the spacer uniform robot detective R. Daniil Olivor as they solve murders. In the late 50s, Asimov began to concentrate more on non-fiction writing, and from 1958 to 1991 he wrote a monthly column about science for the magazine of fantasy and science fiction, which received a Special Hugo Award in 1963. But he eventually returned to science fiction with The Gods Themselves, published in 1972, which saw advanced aliens from a parallel universe make contact with humanity. The book won both the Hugo and Nebula Awards, as did the novelette The Bicentennial Man, published in 1976, about a robot's quest to become human. The novel was adapted into the film Bicentennial Man in 1999 and starred Robin Williams. In the 1980s, Asimov tied together his Robot, Empire and Foundation series in the same fictional universe in Foundation's Edge, published in 1982, and went on to publish several continuing novels in this universe. In 1977, Asimov suffered a heart attack, and in 1983 contracted HIV from a blood transfusion following triple bypass surgery. His HIV status was kept secret out of concern that the anti-AIDS prejudice of the day might extend to his family members. Isaac Asimov died in 1992, the cause of death reported as heart and kidney failure. 10 years later, his family agreed that the HIV story should be made public. During his life, Asimov was president of the American Humanist Association and has several entities named after him in his honour, including the asteroid 5020 Asimov, a crater on Mars, a Brooklyn elementary school, Honda's humanoid robot Asimo, and 4 literary awards. In 2021, Apple TV aired Season 1 of Foundation, an adaptation of Asimov's sprawling Foundation series. In 1990, Asimov said, "I have had a good life, and I have accomplished all I wanted to, and more than I had a right to expect I would."